For me, when I compose, I like to, the process is, or start in a map. It's like writing an article, how to start, how to develop, what's the highest point for your music, how to end it. I have to have the map in my mind first before I sit at the computer.
And I just turn on the record, turn on the whole studio, hit record, and start playing. And sooner or later, something that comes up will pique my interest, and I set that aside so that I can begin the process of seeing that can become something.
I'm sitting on the keys and I'm on the piano and I'm playing some chords or I'm listening to some beats. And that's how I get lots of melody ideas. And I'm usually saying lots of gibberish lyrics with these melodies, but the lyrics are enough to give me a sense of what the theme of the song can be. And once I get lots of melodies, I start recording them. I pick the melodies which I like and create a song, and then I write the lyrics on top of that.
It's almost like a radar beam I have on, and I listen and I can hear a phrase that kind of shimmers, or hear a melody in my head, and it just suddenly has a different quality, and I'm like, oh, that is something that I want to pay attention to. So I write it down or record it on my iPhone, and then right away, I need it to be related to something. It just words in the air or melody in the air. It needs to be in relationship to something. So I'll read the drone, I'll play at the piano, I'll make a quick loop, and then just play around with it and see what evolves from those two pieces coming together. Because of the Mississippi River and the Great Lakes, we're not an isolated region. It feels like we're very connected through the Great Lakes to the Atlantic or the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. I think we have a feeling of connection and new ideas always coming in.
I am in Minnesota. Everybody know Minnesota nice. That's how inspired me to compose, because Minnesota people so wonderful. They're so supportive. I always wanted to show the best part I can, express my appreciation, have a beautiful melody, and combining the Chinese music with the West music.
The Midwest has inspired my craft because I've lived here all my life. I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, lived in Ohio for a while, then in Minneapolis, and recently in Chicago. And when I say recently, I mean the past 25 years. And when I'm writing songs, I'm often thinking of memories of my childhood. And so I'm imagining places in Iowa with giant oak trees and leaves falling down. Or if I think of a baseball park, I think of Raccoon Valley, where I played Little League poorly, and, writing songs, imagining those places.
The Midwest inspired my craft in a lot of ways. I grew up in Omaha, and my first experiences as a performer were in show choir, community theater, and a rodeo show choir called River City Roundup Singers. So I started out from a place of wanting to be an entertainer.
Coming to the Midwest, St. Louis area, from the California Bay Area, I've encountered so many different people and experiences, particularly within the queer communities and communities of color, where people are most marginalized. And so I found my inspiration being here in the Midwest in telling those stories and being witness to beautiful communities, beautiful people, and being able to just be a vessel to tell those stories and to help be a voice for those who are often unheard.
Especially the audiences and the venues. I feel like this is a place where you can really grow what you're doing. The audiences are eager to see what you're doing there. They're very forgiving. They're very open. And it's just an ideal place to become the artist that you are looking for and that you want to be.
So Bob Marley has said a quote like, "Strike the hammer while the iron is hot." And I really believe that, in the beginning of my process, I didn't really like to collaborate with people. I like to just do my own thing. But I really find a joy in collaborating with people because it helps you to stretch. And so, I think that there's nothing like working with other singers, but you have to do it when the energy is high and the ideas are fresh. When you start to let that sit too much, then it gets stale and it's not so nice. So I think that if you're going to collaborate with people, you have to do it when the energies and the ideas are flowing and really get that out, because that's going to help affect the final recording. All of that energy is going to translate into the final recording.
Whenever you can, you should do it. I think it brings creative ideas to the table that you may not have thought of before. It helps you improve your craft. It helps you get better at what you do. And it brings new things to the table that you may not have thought of before.
It's never too late to collaborate, and there's no right time. Just go for it and do it.
If I'm co-writing with someone, I like to have some text, but not necessarily music. For me, I like to start with the text and then let the music kind of come from our interaction with each other. If I get stuck on a song, maybe I've written like 80% of it, and I just can't quite figure out how to bring it home, I'll reach out to someone that I trust and collaborate with them.
When I was in elementary school, because I had a really amazing public school teacher named Mrs. Roberson, who encouraged us all to write our own poems, and writing rhyming poems and telling story with rhyme was just really fun for me. And I think it encouraged me as I got a little older and was in high school playing in bands to start writing my own songs and my own lyrics.
And I didn't always have the voice to say it out loud. I wasn't always so outspoken to just share what I was feeling, but I could always write it. So that really affected me in a way that was positive when I started to, because I started out as a poet. So when I started writing poems and expressing them, I found that so many people, they understood where I was coming from. And so that made me get more courage to say what I needed to say and speak the truth that I was living.
How I became a composer is really interesting because I'm not very good speaking English. I just can compose, then express my feelings and all the joy or suffering, whatever it is, from my heart. I think the music can speak without the language.
I don't feel like I ever consciously decided to be a songwriter or composer. I just always really loved rock music, and there was a point in my life where I had an opportunity to play with another musician who was a rock musician, and I just kind of went for it, and I realized I loved it. Then at that point, I had to make a conscious choice that that's what I wanted to do, is classical music. And I just felt like, fortunately, I was able to take the instrument that I grew up with, the cello, and bring it into the rock world. So I was in a band for a long time. And then when that band broke up, I decided I wanted to keep going. And that's when I started to develop solo material.
When I decided to become a songwriter was actually, I was a White House intern at the time working on healthcare reform. I remember feeling a little bit frustrated that I couldn't communicate the way that I wanted to, in the way that I felt was most honest, knowing somewhere in me that I wanted to do music and songwriting. So I went to the National Cathedral on a Saturday and just sat there and said, okay, I'm going to sit here until I know what to do, like until I have an intuitive feeling. And I sat there a long time, and I finally got frustrated and was like, fine, this isn't working. So I got up to leave, and then I finally had an overwhelming feeling that, yes, it was okay to pursue this path as a songwriter. And so I did. Some songwriters that are inspiring to me are Patty Griffin and Lori McKenna. Both of them seem to happen upon songwriting in kind of an accidental way, which is how I came to it. And Lori McKenna, especially, every one of her songs just destroys me. They're so beautifully written, so emotional. And I'm inspired by the fact that she started a little later, like I've been starting later.
One of the biggest influences has been Nina Simone. I truly appreciate her artistry. I appreciate her gift and ability to expand across genres and to be willing to put herself out there and to tell her story.
I think you can take inspiration from anyone and anywhere in any genre. If they're good at what they do, you can see it and you can tell.
I would say my biggest inspiration is Gulzar. He's a legend in India. He's a poet, he's a songwriter, and I'm absolutely in awe of his works. I have read his books, I have read his poems, and what I love about him is the way he looks at the world. So he personifies everything. So he's going to tell you how a tree is feeling today or how this chair that I'm sitting on is feeling. And his whole way of looking at the world and things is so unique that it really inspires me and helps me think differently when I'm writing a song.
I'll start with the band My Bloody Valentine because their tones were so blurred. You know, not just a straight tone, but a real... the words, I've just discovered the band The National, and their words seem so simple, but they open up a whole world in its seeming simplicity. I love how Max Richter is reinventing classical music. He's not the only one, but I love how he adds electronic element to it. I find that just beautiful. And then Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson, they had a tip. They had their tip for living. And those 3 points: 1, don't be afraid of anybody; 2, have a strong bullshit meter; and 3, be incredibly tender. And so though that really has inspired me. It actually helps me in my life. It helps me on stage. It helps me go on tour. It helps me to write songs even.
When you're talking to people or you're listening to music, and if a word stands out or a quote stands out or a statement stands out and you think, oh my God, this would be amazing for a song, write it down. I have a whole spreadsheet in which I have tons of words and quotes and statements that I hear around me that I've written. And when I'm writing a song, I just open that up in front of me, and it really inspires me because there are all these words that I would never think of while writing a song, and it really opens the door that way in terms of songwriting.
Have a radar beam on all the time so you can pick up these little phrases that other people may miss. You just go, oh, that could be something.
Learn the common format for your genre, regardless of what that is. Every single genre has a particular format that's typical in that genre, and you should learn what that is. I think when you learn that, then you could take the time and you can experiment with it, whether you want to modify it or play with it or throw the rules out entirely, or when you want to throw out the rules. But I think that fundamental basis understanding of how a song is typically put together in your genre makes a big difference in how you're able to build around that.
Songwriting is sort of a spiritual exercise where you have to stay in this really uncomfortable space. I kind of think of it as the space in between. And I think if you rush out of that, you end up with some cliched lyrics or an easy rhyme. And if you stay in that space, oftentimes you'll get a little spark that will lead you somewhere, and you'll kind of know when you're in it. And when you're in it, it's an amazing feeling.
Understand that what you're doing is, there's something greater, there's something bigger that's happening, and be willing to honor that by being authentic to you.
Be ready to give your full attention to your song or your music or whatever, you're writing music until it's done. You know, again, it's about being fully present, but when the inspiration comes, you must meet that inspiration. Like, you can't say, okay, you know, actually, I feel like sleeping right now. I'm going to get up and try and do it. Because when you get up, the inspiration may have left you, and then you're going to come back and there'll be nothing there. And you'll be like, oh, I had something and I lost it. So when that inspiration comes, you have to be ready to receive that inspiration and to walk with that inspiration until it's a completed something. So if you don't, you would have missed a magical moment, and it'll be on you.
You have to love what you do, then in order to touch other people's heart.
If you do get stuck, just maybe do something that you find joyful. Like if you like film, go to a film, or if you need to see friends, go see friends. Because sometimes we haven't had the life experience yet to finish a song. Maybe we're going to meet someone and they're going to say something, and that's going to go on the song. And just to remember that songwriting is a collaboration with life itself. So to show up for songwriting, but also to let life unfold and weave its way into what you're making. That's all.